Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. My wife walked through the front door of our Federal Hill townhouse on October 28th, a Tuesday evening, with that look. You know the one. The same expression she gets when she's about to tell me we need to reorganize the kitchen cabinets or start shopping for new living room furniture. But this time felt different. I was sitting at the dining table reviewing security code on my laptop when she came in. Whitney set her sweet green salad container on the counter with deliberate care, then slowly removed her coat. The fabric made a soft whisper as she draped it over the back of a chair. She turned to face me with practiced casualness. "We need to talk," she said. I looked up from my screen. Those 4 words. Nothing good ever follows that phrase from a married woman. I saved my work and closed the laptop, giving her my full attention. "Okay," I said. "I'm listening." Whitney walked over to the table, but didn't sit down. Instead, she stood there doing that thing where she waves her hands around like she's conducting an invisible orchestra. I'd seen this before. She was nervous, rehearsing lines in her head. "I've been thinking," she started, which immediately put me on high alert. "And I need some space. Just a week to myself to figure things out." I paused and looked at her directly. "Figure what out exactly?" "You know," she said, her hands still moving. "Life stuff. Who I am, what I want. Personal growth. The girls at work think it's totally healthy for couples to take breaks sometimes. To reset and get clarity." The girls at work. Of course. I should have known this genius idea didn't originate from her own mind. These were the same colleagues who'd convinced her to buy a $200 face cream that promised to make her look 25 again. The same ones who talked her into that weekend yoga retreat that cost more than our mortgage payment. "So you want me to pack up and leave for a week while you have your journey of self-discovery?" I asked. "Well, not necessarily you leaving," she said quickly. "Maybe I could stay at my sister's place in Canton. Claire's been asking me to visit more anyway." I leaned back and studied her face. Something was off. Her eye contact was shifty. She kept touching her wedding ring, spinning it. Classic tells. My father was a detective for 30 years. Some instincts rubbed off. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want to abandon your husband for a week to find yourself because your work friends think it's a brilliant idea." "It's not abandoning," she protested. "It's just taking some healthy space." A pause. Time to think. I couldn't help but laugh. Not a genuine laugh, but one of those short, sharp sounds that comes out when something is so absurd you don't know how else to react. "Healthy space," I repeated. "Right. And what exactly are you planning to discover about yourself that you can't figure out here? With me?" She got defensive immediately. "Why are you being so difficult about this? It's just 7 days. Most husbands would be thrilled to have the house to themselves. You could play video games, watch whatever you want, hang out with Derek. You'd have total freedom." That's when I realized what was really happening. She wasn't asking for permission. She was informing me of a decision she'd already made and expecting me to just roll over and accept it. The request itself was just a formality, a courtesy she was extending so she could tell herself she'd been honest and upfront about it. I stood up and walked closer to her. Close enough to see the way her pupils dilated slightly, the way her breathing got a little faster. "You know what?" I said. "You're absolutely right." Her face lit up with surprise. "Really? Absolutely. In fact, why limit yourself to just 1 week? Why not make it a lifetime?" The color drained from her face like water swirling down a drain. "What do you mean?" I smiled and headed toward the stairs. "I mean, if you need space that badly, who am I to stand in your way? You should have all the space you want. Permanently." "That's not what I meant, and you know it," she called after me, her voice rising an octave. "Isn't it, though?" I headed upstairs. "You just told me you need to figure out who you are and what you want. That sounds like someone who isn't sure about her marriage." I could hear her following me up the stairs, her footsteps quick and urgent on the hardwood. I didn't say anything about our marriage. I just said I needed some time. "Time to figure out what you want," I repeated, pulling her large suitcase out of the closet in our bedroom. "Which implies you don't know if you want this." I gestured between us. "You don't know if you want me." "You're twisting my words." "Am I?" I unzipped the suitcase and laid it open on the bed. "Because it sounds to me like you're testing the waters to see how I'll react to you walking away." "Well, congratulations. You found out." The panic in her eyes was unmistakable now. This conversation wasn't going according to whatever script her work friends had prepared her with. She'd probably expected me to protest, to negotiate, to ask her to reconsider. Maybe she'd thought I'd promised to change, to be more attentive, to work harder at our marriage. "I think you're overreacting," she said weakly. Overreacting. I laughed again as I opened her dresser drawer and started pulling out clothes. My wife just told me she wants to leave me for a week to figure out if she wants to stay married. And I'm overreacting by taking her at her word. That's not what I said. Then explain to me what you did say. Use small words so I can understand. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. I need some time to think. About what specifically? About everything. Everything, including us. Long pause. I could see her trying to find the right words, the safe words, the words that would somehow make this okay. Maybe, she finally whispered. And there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for the past 10 minutes. "Well then," I said, setting down a neatly folded sweater in the suitcase. "I appreciate your honesty, and I think you should definitely take all the time you need." "What does that mean?" I walked past her toward the bathroom to grab her toiletries. "It means I'm going to help you get exactly what you want. All the space and time in the world to figure out who you are and what you want." "Where are you going?" she asked, following me. "To get you some toiletries. No point in waiting until tomorrow to start your journey of self-discovery." I could hear her breathing getting faster, more panicked. "This is crazy. I just wanted a week." "And I'm giving you so much more than that," I said, returning to the bedroom with her makeup bag and face cream, the expensive one her work friends recommended. "You should be thanking me." As I pulled more items from her closet, I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. This wasn't how she'd imagined this conversation would go. She'd probably expected me to beg, to negotiate, to promise to change whatever imaginary problems she'd convinced herself we had. Instead, she got exactly what she asked for. And judging by the look on her face, it wasn't what she wanted at all. She stood in the bedroom doorway watching me fold her clothes with methodical precision. Each item went into the suitcase like I was packing for a business trip, not the end of a marriage. "This is insane," she kept repeating. "You're being completely irrational." I held up one of her favorite sweaters, a navy blue cashmere one she wore every fall. "Should I pack this? It might get cold during your soul-searching adventure." "Stop calling it that. What would you prefer? Your journey of self-discovery? Your temporary abandonment of marital responsibilities? Your trial separation?" She sat down hard on the bed, right next to the suitcase. "I never said I wanted to leave you permanently." "No," I agreed, continuing to pack. "You just said you needed to figure out what you want in life. And apparently that includes whether or not you want to stay married. I'm just saving us both some time." "You're putting words in my mouth." I stopped and looked at her directly. Really looked at her. "Am I?" "Because about 3 months ago, you started working late more often. 2 months ago, you stopped initiating any physical contact. Last month, you began checking your phone constantly and smiling at messages you never showed me." Her face went pale. Not just pale. Ghost white. "Should I continue?" I asked. "Because I've got a whole timeline of your gradual disengagement from this marriage." "That's not." I wasn't. "Wasn't what?" I zipped up one section of the suitcase. "Checking out emotionally? Planning your exit strategy? The only thing that surprises me is that you thought I wouldn't notice." She tried a different approach, her voice softer now, more pleading. "Okay, maybe I have been distant lately. But that's exactly why I need this time. To figure out what's wrong and fix it." "Wrong with what? Me? Us? Or wrong with your decision to get married in the first place?" "I don't know," she snapped, her frustration breaking through. "That's why I need space to think." I nodded thoughtfully. "And what exactly are you planning to think about during this week? Because let me save you some time. Either you want to be married to me or you don't. Either you love me enough to work through whatever midlife crisis you're having, or you don't. There's no amount of alone time that's going to change those fundamental facts." I closed the suitcase and set it by the bedroom door. The sound of it hitting the floor was heavy, final. She started crying. Not the genuine tears of someone who's hurt, but the strategic crying of someone who's losing control of the situation. I'd seen this before too. The tears that come out when rational arguments aren't working. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she said between sobs. "What pressure? To be a wife? To honor the commitment you made when you said I do?" Everything is just so complicated right now. I sat down across from her on the ottoman at the foot of our bed. No, it's really not. You know what's complicated? Trying to rebuild trust after your spouse asks for a trial separation. You know what's simple? Deciding whether you want to be married or not. It's not that black and white. Actually, I said, it is. Marriage isn't a part-time job you can take a vacation from when things get tough. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I thought you loved me. I do love you. Which is exactly why I'm not going to beg you to stay somewhere you don't want to be. If you need to leave to figure out your feelings, then you should leave. But don't expect me to wait around like a backup plan while you decide if I'm worth keeping. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you just told your husband you need to take a break from him to figure out if you want to stay married. How else should I interpret that? She had no answer. Just sat there crying, mascara starting to run down her cheeks. I went back to packing. Your sister's place, right? That's where you're planning to stay? Yes, she whispered. Good. She's always thought you could do better than me anyway. I'm sure she'll be thrilled to host your marriage evaluation retreat. Why are you being so cold about this? I looked at her incredulously. Cold. You just asked me for permission to leave our marriage temporarily. And you think I'm being cold by taking you seriously? I didn't ask to leave our marriage. You asked to leave me for a week to figure out what you want in life. What part of that screams committed wife to you? She tried to grab my hands, but I pulled away. The touch felt wrong now. Manipulative. Please don't do this, she said. Can't we just talk about it? We are talking about it. You want space? I'm giving you space. You want time to think? I'm giving you all the time you need. What more is there to discuss? I don't want you to hate me. I don't hate you, I said honestly. But I do respect myself too much to sit around waiting for you to decide if I'm worth staying married to. I closed the suitcase and set it by the bedroom door. The sound of it hitting the floor was heavy, final. There you go, I said. Everything you need for your week of self-discovery. She stared at the suitcase like it was a bomb about to explode. I can't believe you're actually doing this. What did you expect? That I'd beg you not to go? That I'd promise to change into whatever version of myself you think you want? I expected you to fight for us. I am fighting for us. For a marriage where both people want to be there. If you need to leave to figure that out, go. But don't mistake my self-respect for lack of love. She picked up the suitcase with shaking hands. The weight of it made her lean slightly to one side as she walked toward the stairs. I followed her down, watching each step she took. Part of me wondered if she'd change her mind at the last moment. Part of me hoped she would. But a larger part of me knew that if she did, it would only be temporary. This had been building for months. At the front door, she turned to face me one last time. She looked smaller somehow, like she'd shrunk in the last hour. The confidence she'd walked in with was completely gone. What if I changed my mind? She asked quietly. About what? Wanting space or wanting to be married to me? About all of it. I opened the door. The October evening air rushed in, cool and crisp. Then you'll have to convince me that you actually know what you want, instead of just reacting to whatever your coworkers suggest this week. She stood on the porch with her suitcase, looking back at the house. Our house. The place we'd lived for 3 years. The place where we'd planned to raise kids someday. This isn't how I thought this would go, she whispered. No, I said, closing the door slowly. I imagine it isn't. The house felt different after she left. Not empty, just honest. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. No more wondering why she seemed so distant all the time. I poured myself a whiskey and sat down on the couch. The silence was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the silence of clarity, of a decision made. Then I noticed her laptop on the coffee table. She'd been working on it earlier and forgotten to close it. The screen was still lit, battery running down. I reached over to shut it down and noticed she hadn't logged out of her social media accounts. Normally, I wouldn't invade her privacy. That was a line I'd never crossed in 4 years of marriage. But normally, my wife wouldn't ask for a trial separation either. Circumstances had changed. The rules felt different now. What I found didn't surprise me, but it sure as hell confirmed everything I'd suspected. Messages with someone named Kyle from her office. Months of them. Starting innocent enough, work-related stuff about campaigns and client meetings. Then gradually becoming more personal. Complaining about me, about feeling trapped, about how he really understands her. August, the new creative director gets it. We talked for hours. September, Kyle understands feeling disconnected. Why is it easier to talk to him? October. Kyle said I deserve someone who appreciates me. He makes me feel seen. The most recent message was from yesterday, October 27th. Kyle, so you're really going to do it? Whitney, tomorrow night. A week away will make things clearer. Kyle, my place is always open. Time to see what else is out there. Whitney, let's see how it goes. Not burning any bridges yet. So the whole journey of self-discovery was just code for testing the waters with her office boyfriend while keeping me as backup insurance. Classic. She wanted to see if the grass was greener with Kyle while making sure she had a lawn to come back to if it wasn't. I took another sip of whiskey. The burn felt appropriate. My phone buzzed. Text from Whitney. Can we talk tomorrow? I think I overreacted. Then another. I miss you already. And another. This is stupid. I don't want to fight anymore. I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? That I'd found her messages? That I knew the real reason she wanted space? That her plan had backfired spectacularly? No. Let her sit with it. Let her wonder. Let her feel what it's like to not get an immediate response. My phone rang at 11 o'clock. Claire, Whitney's sister. Brian, what happened? She asked without preamble. She's here crying her eyes out. Says you kicked her out. Ask her about Kyle from work, I said calmly. Then ask her who really kicked who out. What do you mean? Instead of explaining, I screenshot one of the message threads and sent it over. The one from October 27th. The one about Kyle's place being open and seeing what else is out there. 3 dots appeared on the screen. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, oh my God. I had no idea. She told you we were having problems? I asked. Yes. She said you guys were growing apart and she needed time to think. We weren't having problems, I said. She was creating them so she could justify her emotional affair. Claire was quiet for a long moment. I can't believe this. She's sitting in my living room playing the victim right now. That's her specialty. What are you going to do? Exactly what I'm doing. Giving her all the space she wants. She thinks you're going to come crawling back in a few days. She said you always cave when she gets upset, that you'll realize you're being stubborn and apologize. I laughed. Does she now? Well, she's about to learn something new about her husband. After hanging up with Claire, I spent the next hour documenting everything. Screenshots of the messages, dates of behavioral changes, timeline of events. Not because I was planning some vindictive revenge, but because I wanted a clear record of how we got here. Evidence for myself, for the divorce attorney I'd probably need to call, for anyone who asked what happened. My phone started buzzing again around 9 o'clock the next morning. Wednesday. More messages from Whitney. I'm sorry about last night. I think we both said things we didn't mean. Can we talk today? Please? I don't want to fight anymore. This is stupid. Your silence is really hurtful. I'm trying to fix this. I made a mistake asking for space. Can I come home? Why won't you answer me? I let them pile up. Each one more desperate than the last. Each one proving that her request for space had nothing to do with needing time to think and everything to do with wanting permission to explore her options. At noon, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Look, I get that you're angry. Her voice came through, tight and strained. But ignoring me isn't going to solve anything. I realized last night that I don't need time away from you. I need time with you. Can we please just talk? Please call me back. The irony was beautiful. 24 hours ago, she was convinced she needed space to figure out her life. Now, suddenly, she'd achieved enlightenment overnight and realized what she really needed was me. Of course, what she'd actually realized was that her backup plan wasn't responding to her manipulation the way it was supposed to. I called her back that evening. Wednesday night. She answered on the first ring. Thank God, she breathed. I was starting to think you were never going to speak to me again. I was considering it. Don't say that. Her voice cracked. Look, I know I handled this all wrong. I should never have asked for space. I was just confused and overwhelmed, and I let my coworkers get in my head. Your coworkers, I repeated. Right. Yes. They kept telling me that marriage shouldn't feel so routine, that I should be happier, that maybe we rushed into things. I started believing them. And what about Kyle? Dead silence. The kind of silence that screams guilt. I'm sorry, what? She finally managed. Kyle. From your office. The one you've been confiding in about our marriage problems. The one you were planning to spend your week of space with. More silence. Longer this time. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I've got months of message history that says otherwise. You went through my private messages? The offense in her voice was almost impressive, deflecting to privacy violation when confronted with emotional infidelity. You left your laptop open when you moved out to go find yourself? I said. I was curious what kind of soul-searching you were planning to do. That's a violation of privacy. And having an emotional affair with a coworker while planning a trial separation isn't a violation of marriage vows. It's not an affair. We're just friends. Friends who discuss how trapped you feel in your marriage? Friends who can't wait to spend real time together once you get rid of your inconvenient husband? You're taking those messages out of context. Am I? Because the context seems pretty clear to me. You've been emotionally cheating, got caught up in the fantasy, and decided to test drive a separation to see if the grass was greener. That's not. She stopped, started again. It wasn't like that. Then explain what it was like. Use specific details this time. Another long pause. I could hear her trying to formulate an answer that would somehow make this okay. It started as just work conversations, she finally said. He was going through a divorce, and I was feeling disconnected from you. We just talked about our struggles. About how terrible your marriage was. About how we were struggling, she corrected. Then it escalated. We started texting outside work, meeting for coffee. Did you tell him you were planning to use your week of space to explore a relationship with him? Silence. Whitney, did you plan to sleep with him during your week away? Nothing physical happened, she said quickly. Nothing. Yet. But it would have during your week of space, wouldn't it? She started crying again. I made a mistake. I got confused. But I know now that I want to be with you. Because your plan backfired. Because I didn't react the way you wanted. Because I realized what's important. No, I said. Because you realized I wasn't going to sit around waiting for you to decide between me and your coworker boyfriend. He's not my boyfriend. What would you call a man you're emotionally intimate with behind your husband's back? A man you were planning to spend time with during a separation? A man who told you his place was always open? She had no answer for that either. Just more crying. I have to go, I said. Wait, don't. I hung up. She showed up at my door Thursday evening without warning. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for 10 minutes in front of our townhouse, probably rehearsing whatever speech she'd prepared. When I opened the door, she looked like she hadn't slept. Good. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the house. Actually, we don't. She turned around in the entryway, and I could see she'd been crying. The makeup was doing its best, but it couldn't hide the puffy eyes and red nose. You said you needed space to figure things out, I continued. I'm giving you exactly that. I don't want space anymore. I want to come home. I closed the door and leaned against it. And I want a wife who doesn't need to leave me to figure out if she wants to stay married. Guess we're both disappointed. I know you read my messages with Kyle. Is that what we're calling him now? Kyle, not my coworker or just a friend. Fine. Yes, I was talking to him about our problems. But it never went beyond talking. I walked to the kitchen and grabbed 2 bottles of water from the fridge, tossing one to her. She caught it, but didn't open it. Define beyond talking, I said. We never kissed, never touched, never did anything physical. But you wanted to. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. You were emotionally cheating with this guy, planning to use your week of space to explore whatever fantasy you'd built up in your head. She slammed the water bottle down on the counter. You're right. Okay. Is that what you want to hear? I was attracted to him. I liked the attention. I liked feeling wanted and interesting again. Again? When did you stop feeling wanted by your husband? When you stopped trying to win me over every day? When we fell into a routine? When you started taking me for granted? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. So this is my fault. I didn't try hard enough to keep you entertained, so you started shopping for a replacement. I didn't say it was your fault. You just did. You said I stopped trying, took you for granted, let us fall into a routine. That's all code for you drove me into another man's arms. I was lonely. You were married to me. If you were lonely, you should have talked to me, not your office boyfriend. I tried talking to you. When? I asked. Because I distinctly remember you becoming distant and cold. But I don't remember any conversations about feeling lonely or disconnected. She started pacing around the kitchen. You never noticed how unhappy I was. I noticed you pulling away. I noticed you guarding your phone. I noticed you working late and coming home exhausted and irritated. What I didn't notice was you making any effort to fix whatever was bothering you. I shouldn't have to spell out every feeling for you. No, but you shouldn't be spelling them out to other men either. He was just nice to me. He listened when I talked. He made me feel like what I said mattered. And I didn't. Not lately. Because I wasn't treating every conversation like a therapy session. Because I assumed my wife of 4 years was happy unless she told me otherwise. You never asked how I was feeling. I asked every day how your day was. You said fine. That's not the same. Then what should I have asked? What magical question would have prevented you from seeking intimacy with another man? She wiped her eyes. You could have noticed I was struggling. I did notice. I asked if you wanted to talk about it. You said everything was fine. I asked if you wanted to do something together on weekends. You said you were tired. I suggested we take a vacation. You said we couldn't afford it. Those weren't the right conversations? What would have been the right conversation? Because apparently I was supposed to read your mind and initiate some specific discussion that would have saved our marriage. She had no answer, just sat there crying into her hands. I just needed to feel like you still wanted me around. I married you. I come home every day. I sleep next to you. I assumed that was evidence. It felt like obligation, not desire. Carl made me feel desired. Seen. He made you feel like his therapist and potential rebound. There's a difference. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You got bored with being married to me. Found someone who made you feel like you were special and different and convinced yourself that meant we had problems. We did have problems. We had normal marriage stuff. Routine, familiarity. What we didn't have was insurmountable problems. Not until you created them. Then why did I feel so disconnected? Because you chose to. Because instead of talking to your husband about feeling disconnected, you talked to another man about it. Because instead of putting energy into fixing what we had, you put energy into exploring what you might have with someone else. She stood up abruptly. So what now? You're just going to throw away 4 years of marriage because I made a mistake? I'm not throwing anything away. You did that when you decided to test drive a separation to see if you preferred your coworker. I told you I realized I was wrong. You realized your backup plan wasn't going to sit around waiting for you to choose him. That's not the same as realizing you were wrong. That's not fair. Fair. I set my water bottle down. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you coming to me with your concerns instead of taking them to another man. Fair would have been you working on our marriage instead of planning to leave it. I'm here now trying to work on it. No, you're here now trying to control the damage after your plan fell apart. The truth hit her like cold water. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. I know what I did was wrong, she finally said quietly. Do you? Because 5 minutes ago you were still trying to justify it as my fault for not being attentive enough. She had no response to that. Dude, what happened? Derek called Friday afternoon. She asked for space. I gave her permanent space. She's telling people you kicked her out for no reason. Did she mention the co-worker she's been emotionally cheating with? Silence. Wait, what? I filled him in. By the time I finished, he was whistling low. That's brutal. You need anything? I'm good. Actually handling this better than I expected. By Friday evening, the dominoes continued falling. Claire texted me. Told Whitney she has until mid-November to find a place. Can't enable this. I appreciated that more than she knew. And I was. The clarity was almost refreshing. No more wondering why she'd been distant. No more questioning myself about what I'd done wrong. No more walking on eggshells around someone who was already halfway out the door. The house felt like mine again, not a battlefield where every word had to be carefully measured. Saturday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Kyle himself, standing on my front porch looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Can we talk? He asked when I opened the door. Sure. You can talk from right there on the porch. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, I know this is awkward, but I wanted you to know that nothing physical ever happened between us. Congratulations. Want a medal for not sleeping with my wife? I just thought you should know. What I know is that you spent months undermining my marriage by encouraging my wife to confide in you instead of her husband. She was unhappy. I just listened. You did more than listen. You validated her complaints, made her feel justified in being dissatisfied, and gave her emotional intimacy that should have been reserved for her spouse. He looked down at his shoes. I was going through my own divorce. We were both struggling. And you used that shared struggle to create an inappropriate relationship with a married woman. He tried to defend himself. She made her own choices. After you spent months convincing her she deserved better. Kyle looked up. For what it's worth, I told her I'm not interested anymore. Why? Conscience kick in? My ex-wife did the same thing. Left me for a coworker. When Whitney asked for that week, I saw myself in you. Realized I was becoming the person I hated. That's convenient timing. Right after her plan failed. She's called me 50 times since Wednesday. Showed up at my apartment Thursday night. I told her I was never serious, that it was just talking. She's acting like I led her on. And now you're here because she's threatening to tell HR we had an affair. Trying to take me down with her. Did you? No. But the messages look bad. That's your problem, not mine. Here's some advice, I said. Next time you're going through a divorce, talk to a therapist, not someone else's wife. He nodded and started to leave, then turned back. She really does love you, you know? She talked about you all the time. Past tense. Talked. And yes, I'm sure she did, while complaining about how I wasn't good enough. After Kyle left, I sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling. So Whitney had been harassing him, showing up at his place, calling constantly. The fantasy she'd built up in her head had shattered, and now she was lashing out at everyone. Sunday morning, she appeared at my door again. 10 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and saw her standing there. She'd been crying again. Looked even worse than Thursday. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Kyle told me he came here, she said. He did. What did he say? That you've been harassing him since your plan fell apart. She looked stricken. He led me on. He made me think. He made you think what? That he wanted a relationship? Or did he just make you feel special for a few months? Both. I don't know. I was confused. And I didn't make you feel special? Not like he did. Were you planning to sleep with him during your week away? Long silence. The longest yet. I don't know, she finally whispered. Maybe. I hadn't decided. First honest answer she'd given. And somehow that made it worse. So you asked me for permission to test drive a replacement. It wasn't like that in my head. How was it in your head? I thought if I had space, I could figure out if what I was feeling was real or just boredom. And what about us? I thought if it was real with Kyle, maybe we weren't right. If it wasn't, I'd come back and appreciate what I had. So, I was the safety net. I know how it sounds. You made a series of choices. Every message to Kyle instead of me. Every complaint about our marriage to him. Every fantasy about someone else. Those were choices. I choose you now. I choose us. You chose me as a backup plan. That's not the same thing. What can I do? There has to be something. There's nothing. Because I can't trust you. Even if you're genuine now, how do I know you won't get bored again? How do I know the next time you feel underappreciated, you won't look outside our marriage? She had no answer. Just stood there on my porch, tears streaming down her face. I think you should go, I said. I don't have anywhere to go. Claire's deadline is coming up, and I haven't found a place yet. That's not my problem anymore. So that's it. For years means nothing? For years meant everything. Which is why what you did hurt so much. But the hurt doesn't change the facts. You were willing to throw us away. I'm just accepting that reality before you do it again. She left without another word, got in her car, and drove away. I watched from the window until she turned the corner. Monday, November 4th, I met with a divorce attorney. Margaret Moore, 50-something sharp. Straightforward case, she said. No kids, minimal assets. With mutual consent in Maryland, we can move quickly. Could be final by early January. Papers were filed immediately. Whitney received them November 8th. You actually filed? She called immediately. Did you think I was bluffing? I thought we'd try counseling. These papers give you the permanent space you wanted. She hung up. November rolled forward. I found a new rhythm. Gym mornings, dinner with my parents Tuesdays, game nights with Derek Thursdays. The house felt peaceful. By mid-November, Whitney had moved to Towson, found an apartment. She'd quit her job before leaving, too awkward after Kyle. HR had gotten involved, and the whispers had become too much. On November 20th, I ran into her at Whole Foods. We both reached for the same coffee. Our hands touched. She pulled back. Hey, she said. Hey. Awkward silence. You look good, she offered. Thanks. She looked tired, thinner. Are you seeing anyone? Not your business anymore. Right? Sorry. I'm in Towson now. The divorce will be final soon. I know. Take care, Whitney. I walked away. Didn't look back. December passed in a blur of work and routine. The house stayed peaceful. I started planning for the year ahead. On New Year's Eve, I went to Melissa's party. Watched fireworks over the harbor at midnight. First New Year's Eve as a single man in 5 years. It felt right. A new beginning. The divorce was finalized on January 9th. That evening, I poured the good whiskey. For years of marriage ended with paperwork. But I wasn't sad. I thought back to October 20th. If I'd begged, promised to change, given her that week, where would we be? Probably right here anyway. Just more humiliated. My father had been right. Once someone shows they're willing to leave, it's already over. You're either a participant in the ending or a victim of it. I chose participant. The funny thing about self-respect is that once you stop compromising it, everything becomes clearer. I learned I'd rather be alone than with someone who sees me as an option rather than a choice. And honestly, that felt like the most valuable lesson of all. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.